Hello, and welcome to another episode of the Resume Ready podcast. My name is Brian Schneider, and on today's episode, I'm going to discuss how to pull off a successful interview through a combination of smart preparation, engaged dialogue, and post-interview reflection. I do want to mention that today's podcast includes references from my free online Prezi presentation called Journey to an Interview, a link to which I'll include in the show notes. While the presentation is asynchronous and without audio, the sections and slides cover many of the same topics to which I'm going to refer today. In addition, I'll also refer to a few topics from previous episodes, including a candidate's trifecta and your elevator pitch. If you haven't listened to those episodes yet, I highly recommend them, as they'll also be helpful in supporting your job search journey. Now, I'd like to remind you that today's episode is sponsored by the great people at Bradley Garrett Salon on Brookhaven Circle here in Memphis, Tennessee. The stylists at Bradley Garrett believe that self-care is crucial to your personal resilience and that taking a break from the hustle and bustle of life supports your ability to rejuvenate and feel better about yourself. When you're at the salon, they make you feel special, creating a relaxing, comfortable atmosphere focused on supporting your resiliency. The stylists are experienced and provide a wide range of exceptional services, helping you look your absolute best. I highly encourage you to check out Bradley Garrett Salon on Brookhaven Circle. Now on to the podcast. In an effort to make it easier to explain the best ways to achieve a successful interview, I'm going to break up today's episode into 3 phases focused on before, during, and after the interview, and discuss them individually. Congratulations! You've been selected for an interview for the position to which you applied. This is great news because it means you've achieved the next step of the hiring process, moving from a large pool of applicants, which can range from 120 to 180, down to an average of 5 or less people chosen to be interviewed. That's a 95% reduction in your competition and puts you one step closer to being selected and offered the job. Now, let's talk about what you can do before the interview to help you win the interview. Before the interview is a phase which can greatly impact the success of your interview and which, based on your natural tendencies, can sometimes be overlooked and considered non-essential. However, there are aspects of this phase, if left unaddressed, which will likely result in a weak interview. For starters, I like to remind people to consider the employer's point of view. The employer is looking to fill a vacancy with the most qualified individual, and her greatest concern is risk. In other words, the employer is asking herself, will this candidate turn out to be a quote-unquote bad hire? In light of her concern, your objective should be to convey what I call the candidate's trifecta, which is low risk, high value, and great fit. Keep these in mind when preparing for and during your interview. The other thing to focus on before the interview is preparation. Abraham Lincoln once said, "Give me 6 hours to chop down a tree, and I'll spend the first 4 sharpening the axe." Preparation, in many ways, is important to giving yourself the greatest chance of having a strong interview. Now, I'm going to quickly run through a series of what I believe are the essential preparation steps to help you have a great interview. First, you want to research the company, the position, and the industry. Learning about the company's structure and latest trends or programs could be key to connecting your past successes with its future. You'll want to research the position to identify granular ways you believe your learning curve will be short and time to being productive in the new role will be quick. And you'll want to research the industry. What macro trends in the areas of technology, the environment, or the political landscape exist that might influence a company's direction or change its objectives? The second component of a strong preparation is developing thoughtful responses to typical interview questions. I would suggest looking on LinkedIn or another search engine for typical structure or behavior-based interview questions, and then actually writing down your responses based on your background and experience. Writing down the responses to these questions forces you to think through and develop a strong response, which will benefit you during the interview. There are several methods for developing strong responses to questions, including SHARE, which stands for situation, hindrance, action, result, and evaluation. STAR, which stands for situation, task, action, and result, and PAR, which stands for problem, action, and result. No matter how you choose to formulate your response, it should be specific and detailed, and it should convey to the listener how you helped achieve success. As part of this question response effort, you should also develop a list of 3 to 4 of your strongest achievements so that during the interview you can quickly refer to these based on the questions and topic of the conversation. The third component to a strong preparation is questions for the interviewer. You should develop 3 to 4 solid questions for the interviewer based on the level of your interview. For instance, if it's your first interview, you'll want to stick with some basic questions pertaining to topics such as travel requirements, basic job duties not covered in the job posting, and typical work hours. As you move through the hiring process to later interviews, your questions will probe deeper into details of the position such as vacation policy, benefits, and performance evaluations. The fourth component of preparation is your appearance. In a podcast I listened to previously on this topic, I recall Dr. Paul Green saying a candidate should dress in a way that people are not distracted by his appearance, but rather they are attracted to his words, character, and skills. When working with people on interview preparation, I always encourage people to dress one level above what others typically wear at that organization. If you don't know what people typically wear, I suggest going with professional dress just to be safe. The last item I want to review to ensure great preparation is your resume. Be sure you know your resume backwards and forwards, inside and out. Similar to providing timely, detailed responses to typical interview questions, being able to quickly recall topic-appropriate achievements directly from your resume looks and sounds great in an interview. The best way to ensure this level of recall ability is to go through your resume over and over so there are no hiccups or mistakes during the interview. That concludes what I want to cover about the before the interview phase. Now I'm going to talk about the during the interview phase and how you want to conduct yourself for this phase. During the interview, it's essential to convey confidence in your words, excitement in your tone, and a positive attitude focused on success. I often use the analogy that someone interviewing is like a politician trying to win a vote. He or she is smiling a lot, has a positive attitude, and maintains a confident presence. Some would say for the interview, you have to ratchet your engagement up a notch to help impress not only those who are interviewing you, but everyone in the building, including the receptionist, janitor, potential future colleagues, and anyone in a leadership role. The next component of the during the interview phase is dialogue. During the interview, you want to have a strong, confident, back-and-forth conversation providing solid, detailed answers and responses to questions. During the exchange, be sure to maintain eye contact and try to make frequent references to your background and experience which point to your ability to succeed in the new role. Keep in mind the candidate's trifecta: low risk, high value, and great fit. The interviewer wants to believe you will perform well in the new role quickly. She'll want to understand the value you'll bring to the department and organization based on your credentials and capabilities. And you'll want her to believe you'll be a great fit with the teams and overall culture, which taken together could make you a potential long-term employee. The next component of the during the interview phase is what I call tips and tricks. During the interview, you'll want to be aware of how to turn a weakness into a strength in case you're asked to share one of your weaknesses. You'll want to understand how to compose a skill benefit statement to associate future potential value in the new role based on your previous successful experiences. And you'll want to be aware of what I call the Eeyore syndrome, which is aptly named for Winnie the Pooh's friend Eeyore from the cartoon. Eeyore always sounds down and depressed no matter the subject and doesn't seem to be much fun to be around. Lastly, during the interview, be sure you avoid what I call mosquitoes, which can also diminish your performance, such as clicking your pen, bouncing your knee, or bad-mouthing a former employer or coworker. The next and last phase I'm going to cover is what you should do after the interview. After the interview, you should have some kind of celebration to mark the completion of the interview. It takes a lot of time and effort to even get to a point when you can have a job interview, and you should reflect on what it took to get here and celebrate, even in a small way, this achievement. There are some other more specific items to do as well after the interview, which, if completed soon thereafter, can help you going forward with either the company with which you just interviewed or future interviews with other companies. First, the same day as the interview, take the time to write a thank you note or email to all of the people who interviewed you. Also send a thank you note to any bridge person who, in some way, shape, or form, connected you with the company with which you interviewed. Showing gratification is a strong character trait and can serve you well. I encourage people to handwrite a thank you note because I think it gives you a competitive advantage during the hiring process. If there isn't a way to write a thank you note, send a short, thoughtful email. The second thing to do after the interview is write down as many of the questions as possible from the interview and your respective answers to those questions. Consider whether you could have responded better to one or more questions and what you might have said instead based on your background, experience, or the situation. The last thing I would suggest after an interview is to have a conversation with a friend about the interview. Share some of your responses in addition to the general pace and feel of the interview. Try and solicit some genuine feedback to get perspective for how you might approach the same topic or question differently next time. Talking with a friend afterwards is also a great way to find strength from the encouragement you'll likely receive. For some reason, in retrospect, we're typically hard on ourselves or critical of our performance, and speaking with somebody can be a boost to our self-esteem at a much-needed time. Why it matters. Understanding the before, during, and after phases of interview and the best approach to take for each is essential to giving yourself the best chance of having a successful interview. While interviewing itself can be a great teacher for learning how to interview, putting in a little time and effort prior to the interview will help make a great impression on your potential new employer. By following these strategies for before, during, and after an interview, you'll give yourself a competitive advantage so you can win the job interview. Hey everyone, thanks for listening. For more information on the topics covered in today's episode and many others, check out the articles on my LinkedIn profile, a link to which can be found in the show notes. If you feel today's episode was helpful, please consider sharing it with a friend and subscribing to the show. Tune in to Resume Ready next time when I'll be discussing how to build a more dynamic LinkedIn profile.